Hey guys, this is Rocking3 bringing you the live commentary for Forza 5. This is going to be part of the tips and tricks series that I've been doing. So far we've gone over all the assists, and we've gone over how to build a car with parts, and now we're on to the tuning section. So this car here is a Ferrari F50 on Bathurst, and it is stock except for the parts. We have the parts that we want on here. Now we need to get it tuned in. So what I want to do is kind of do a baseline here and put the 1,000th. I'm going to put the 1,000 leaderboard person out here in the Ferrari F50, and we're going to do one full lap against it, and we're going to see how this car does, and then we're going to tune it, and then we're going to see how much we can improve it. So the Ferrari F50 is actually one of the easier cars to drive out of the box. So I think stock, we should be able to get real close to this 1,000th place person. The only thing that I really have a problem with right now is the brakes itself. The brakes really don't stop this car very well. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. You can see I'm struggling with that a little bit. Oh, no, no. Let's back that up. I just crunched that. And that's fine. Let's start there. That way we don't hit it so hard. It doesn't really matter. This car really does slide a little bit more than it should. Yeah, we're real close. So we're going to count this time, even though it's going to be a dirty lap, because with tuning this, we're going to improve it anyway. We're going to be much further, much closer, or a lot better off than the 1,000th place car. Oh, come on, brakes, come on, brakes, come on, brakes, come on, brakes. There we go. Alright, so we're going to beat it. We're going to probably be about 950th place, even though we didn't get a clean lap there. So I'm going to type down that time, and then we are going to come back to the tuning, and it's going to give you just an overall tuning guide. How I do it, how I test it, and then I tune it some more. So I'll be right back. I'm going to be on a test track when I get back. Be right back. Alright, and we're back. The time, the 2:11.413 on Bathurst was 746th on that class, and now we're into the tuning setup. So everything here is going to be default. So we're going to start making some changes here. I am going to set this down to 27, and we'll check the tire pressure and temperature later. We have stock transmission here, so we can't make any adjustments. You will typically have to make adjustments for your gearing accordingly for each track that you're on, because each one of them has, you know, a different gear ratio requirement. This is one of the reasons why this car is so easy to drive, is that it already has a lot of camber to it. We're going to zero out this camber here in the toe, the front and the rear. We're going to get the tires as flat as possible, as far as, you know, turning in and out. So now we're going to work on the camber. So one of the problems that I did have with this particular car is that it slid out a little bit. So it stayed in a turn, it would move from the inside of the track to the outside of the track a little bit too much. So my first move here is I'm actually going to increase the rear, and I'm actually going to increase the front camber a little bit too. I'm going to try to control those turns a little bit better, so it turns, it dives in a little bit more. This will be a good starting point for this. Typically, this has been pretty high to be very competitive, and you know, we may end up even going up into this area with this, but at this time we want to stay mild to make sure that it's still controllable. Make sure we don't start sliding out a little bit. With these numbers being a huge negative, 2.2 and 2.5, these are actually pretty big negatives. I'm actually going to work this front caster, and I'm going to move it up a little bit further. If we move this front one up more, I'm going to increase this one a little bit more because it's just the front that it deals with. So at 2.2, I'm going to go up to 6. If we move this down, I would go ahead and move the front caster down a little bit too. It just helps with the stability of the car in a straight line. Anti-roll bars is one of the two key. These two here, anti-roll bars and springs, are probably the key tuning aspects of this game. This one's pretty interesting. The roll bars are stiffer in the front than they are in the rear. That typically means it's going to understeer a little bit. This car really doesn't understeer a whole lot, but it does push in the corners a little bit. This here, the spring front and rear, kind of does the opposite. So this is kind of helping it oversteer. So I think this is why the vehicle turns in a little bit better than most cars stock, is because it has this oversteer built into it. So what I actually want to do, since it was actually pushing through the turns pretty well, and we have flattened out this this rear toe, that negative rear toe actually makes the back end come around a little bit faster. This makes it stay a little bit more stable. This makes it turn in a little bit sharper. And actually it's a little bit opposite with the toe in the front, so this makes it turn in a little bit more, and this makes it, let me see, no, actually I think I was wrong. So this makes it turn in a little bit more, and this actually can play opposite and make it a little bit more stable. What I like to do is start at 0 and 0 with everything, and make sure the vehicle still turns in the way I want it to. So what I want to do here is this is really soft. I don't really like to get into the single digits with the anti-roll bars in the rear. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit, and I'm actually going to reduce the front a little bit. Actually, I'm going to make it even, or as close as I can to even, because we took this negative toe out. I want to make sure this vehicle still turns in. So I was going from understeer to more of an oversteer, but it really is just a balance right now. I do like these numbers. I'm going to leave these front springs where they're at default. I do like the fact that they're trying to make it oversteer out of the box, which is probably one of the reasons why it does so well. I'm going to bring these down just a little bit. I'm not going to be crazy with it, so I don't want to bottom it out too much. So I have my anti-roll bars set at neutral, and I have them kind of soft. That'll hopefully help with a little bit more traction. The reason why I'd be at 10 instead of at 20 each is that the stiffer it is, it seems like the less traction you have. Now if it gets too soft, you can make these too soft, it causes you different problems, and you'll see the body kind of roll, and it just doesn't work very well. So I'm set to neutral here on the anti-roll bars. I'm set to oversteer a little bit with the springs, and I have my right height where I want it to. The rebound stiffness, I always see these be a little bit too soft out of the box. So what I like to do is I'm going to take this one up by 3. I'm going to go up to 8.2. And I don't want these numbers to be too far apart. I really don't like these being like 10 and 5 anymore. I really like the fact when they're a little bit closer. So I'm going to add 3 to both of them. Now the bump stiffness is something that helps you with a little bit of traction, kind of how it handles over larger bumps, how if the tire stays in contact, and then rumble strips as well. So make sure the rumble strips will actually balance you off if this is too stiff. I've actually flipped the car by having the bump stiffness too stiff, with the vehicle being too low. So what I like to do is I like to soften these up a little bit. On this one I'm going to do by 5, and then I'm going to take this one down by 1. I'm trying to get these numbers a little bit closer, usually about 4 and 2, so about 2.0 is about as far as I like to have them apart. I'm going to try to get these a little bit closer this time, but this is pretty generally what my dampening looks like. Sometimes these are up in the 10s, and what I also like to do is keep, if the car came like it did where the front is lower than the rear, I like to keep that same ratio. So even though I moved them both up, I kept the rears stiffer than the front. If they were the other way around and the front was stiffer, I'll leave that one stiffer in the front as well. Even if we end up going all the way to even, I make sure I never move that front below the rear if that's the way the car came. This particular one doesn't have any arrow on it, so I'm not able to make any adjustments. And with a speed car on A-Class, I probably would be right here in the middle anyway. So it looks like this already has pretty good downforce, so I'm not really needing the arrow. This has been really tricky on this car. This is a lighter car on the nose than it is in the rear because it's a rear engine. So I'm going to move this actually down. Usually I go about 53 and 140. But this 50 and 100% was not working at all. So the brake balance is definitely off. So I don't want to lock it up. So I'm going to go down to 47%, and I'm going to start at 140. This is a high horsepower car, and I often do this with the high horsepower cars, is I'll reduce the deceleration because I don't want the engine to fight me too much. And then I also want the acceleration to be a little bit lower so that I don't spin out the wheels too fast. What I find with the higher horsepower cars, and like with the R class and the S class and stuff like that, I move this deceleration up because I do want the engine to help slow down the car. In this case, this is a pretty well-rounded car. I'm not so worried about that. So now that we have all that applied, let's go ahead and go back out to that Bathurst track and see how it does. I am going to run the warm-up lap, and then when I come back, we'll be in the full second lap. Alright, and we're back. I'm on the second full lap here, and I have the telemetry pulled up for the tires. Did a test lap with, just warming it up. Car turns in pretty well. I'm not losing too much traction out of the back side of the turn. You see our tire pressure is at 31, a little bit over 31 on most of them. I actually probably want to lower it down just a little bit. I like to have the pressure just a little bit lower than 31. Tire temperature is actually pretty good. Let's go and knock those down a little bit. Pretty happy with the temperature of the tires. Let's see how that makes a change. Alright, did bring the pressure down just a little bit under 31. Tire temperature has gone up a little bit. I'm okay with that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit more rear camber. Let's see what that does. We'll go up to 3.0 here. It's going to bring that up to 5. We'll move that up a little bit just to counterbalance the front camber. Feels like I had a little bit of wheel lock up, so I'm going to change the brake pressure again. Or not the pressure, but the balance. And let's see what happens at the end of this long straightaway. Good tire pressures between 30 and 32. And this tire temperature, 210, just a little bit of over, is pretty good as well. And I locked them up. So we're going to go even a little bit further with it. Let's see if it makes it worse or better. It is possible that we're going the wrong direction. So let's go down to 44. Really want these brakes to be solid because that'll help me with a really good lap time. There, that was better. No issues there. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, let's go ahead and call that a quits, and when I come back, I think we have the tune where we want it to. We will try to put another lap time down against the rival. See you in a second. Alright, and we're back. I put the proper rival out here, and we're going to do one full lap here. I already did the warm-up lap, and we're going to see how this car now compares with the previous time we had. Car is really handling really nice. I can get good turn in with it. Messed up that first turn a little bit. Wanted to follow through on it, but I hit the gas a little too early. Got my brakes all figured out, which is really nice. Stops without locking them up. Not a lot of confidence yet going into that turn. Another really bad turn. That was better. Oh. If I could drive, worth a darn. We have this car set up. So in our first full lap with it tuned, we are obliterating our former time. Oh no, 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 mess up the last turn like that. Well, we were obliterating it. And we beat it by 1.2 seconds. All the difference in the tune. Alright, I hope you guys learned something from there. If you guys have any questions, around tire pressure, one thing we didn't cover was gear ratios. Mainly because I had a stock transmission here, but those are the tricks for my oversteer, understeer, holding turns. We didn't get into aero because I didn't have aero. I think that's kind of a personal choice. The braking, you can see how I tested out the braking. Wanted the car to stop a lot faster. That's probably a really big contributing factor to the faster lap time, was the better braking and the differential. So hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. And from all the videos we've had so far, you can get your assist the way you wanted to, get your parts the way you wanted to, and now your tune. So in the next video, we're going to talk about driving lines. Hopefully we can put this all together and make a really good build out and prepare you for some leaderboard attack or some multiplayer. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you later.